Later on the show, we'll look at the work of Sandra Luciantonio, including a recent videotape and an exhibition of constructions at the Ed Gallery.
I dreamed that I had died.
My sister is a chartered accountant, a safe job, makes lots of money. She was always taking careful, calculated steps to reach her goals. When I asked her what makes her happy, she said, surrounding myself with nice things. I guess if you're smart enough to get yourself in an economically cozy position, then you're worthy of surrounding yourself with nice things, if that's what makes you happy. Do you judge a person's worth by their brains or their backs? At the age of 27 years, my sister is looking for a house to buy, an investment. Smart. 3 bedrooms for guests, 2-car garage, a quiet place, room for a garden, but not out of the city or far from work. My sister likes to surround herself with nice things. She enjoys comfortable living.
The same fancy presentation box with the landscape of little satin pillows and the workers in amongst them shows up again in a gallery situation. Sandra Luciantonio currently has a show at the Ed Gallery in Guelph, and in the show are many of these smallish box constructions in which she either places found objects or constructs objects that tell us a story. Sandy's been kind enough to join us today. Tell us a little bit about how she goes about her constructions. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Nan.
You notice how I phrased that. I said how you go about your constructions, because I know that you're not really comfortable with explaining why you do them.
Well, I'd rather take you into the studio and show you how I make things. I think that's a lot more fun. That's why I'm a visual artist, because I find it much easier to express myself visually than to talk about them.
Is it that the message is there in the assemblage, and if if the viewer makes the effort, you can find that message?
The message is there, hopefully. These are objects that are reference, and I hope that the title also will lend to its meaning.
In Comfortable Living, the piece we just saw, there are really just 3 elements. It's quite simple in that way, in that there's the box and the satin pillows and the little figures. Now this one, The King Finds Shelter, has a lot of different things that you've added.
Yeah, I started out with constructing these small screens, and I was really delighted with the look and the gadgetry of them. So I used that for the initial idea and wondered how I could employ them in this piece. And so that was the beginning of the piece, and finding other images that go along, they create the story in this case. There's a little boy who, this because of this has a function, that the glass did fall down on him. And there's potential for the same thing to happen to this little girl, but she still is already suffering her fate. But in the third part, the king is running for shelter. This is a king from a joker, from a deck of cards.
I love the glass. It looks dangerous, and yet it's very attractive. But there's no glass here. And what was your thinking on that?
Well, I didn't see a reason to have a glass there because it would close in the space. And this taken to the extreme as a narrative, I think that what is going on inside the piece is already going on outside the piece. So it can be read just as that.
So your viewer coming at this is open to make his own story, or do you feel that you've said it in
Well,
one way?
I think I'm pretty definite about my statement in this piece. I try to let the viewer do it with their own perceptions, but in this case, I'm pretty definite about what I want to say.
It's a comment on nuclear war?
It certainly is.
In the piece we just looked at, The King Finds Shelter, the movement was very strongly suggested, but it had already happened. The little trapdoors had already done their damage. A lot of your pieces, including this one, which is Objects of Sentiment, the viewer is invited to make the movement.
Yes, in this particular piece, what's going on here is there's a stamp, it's an X in there, and the viewer can push it down and make the impression. And then what this gizmo erases it after in the sand.
You're talking about sentiment here. What kind of sentiment did you have in mind when you titled this one?
The initial idea for this piece came from a want ad. I think it was for Lost Object of Sentimental Value. And I just began to think about that phrase because I kept seeing it so often. When the object is lost, what else is lost? Is the whole memory of the souvenir of that object lost? Or is the value the moment, or is the value the object?
Now, when I look at these, the thing that is most recognizable to me and stands out are the bits of painted gingerbread from the Guelph houses. So what it evokes in me is idea of home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your intention?
Well, I started out with home. This is the front porch, and hopefully there are particular home-style sentiments there. And then I go over to the more monumental structure, which could be related to an institution or even a vacation. And then by the time I got to the third piece, I sort of started to get further away from my initial idea, so I stopped there with it. Kind of looks altar-like to me.
This would be a good point at which to go into the studio and just see how this process goes. Sandy, this is surprisingly neat for a studio.
Thanks. I know where everything is here. I have a whole filing system. Small paper and small objects, found objects, and pieces of plastic and metal bits. This is where I get all the clues from where I'm going to begin.
Do you start with the box, or do you start with the things that are going to go in the box?
Well, I can start with, both. I start from objects that I take out and compare with each other.
Give us a for instance.
Okay. Well, here's a box. I might like this box, but it already has things on it, so it will dictate the direction that the piece is going to take. Or I could take something a little less definite. It's just the framework from which to begin.
I like that.
I like that box.
Where did that come from?
I think I got that at Last Chance Recycling. I just went through her shop there and picked it up. And then I pick out objects that I like, that are interesting. This one I've had around for a long time, but I've never found a place for it. So I might look at that and put something else beside it. I use, like I said, all kinds of materials. With an onion bag, I use fabrics and furs. wood. I like to use wood that already has paint on it, so that I don't have to make those kind of decisions about color and paint. I just will arrange them. I use color for decoration purposes, but I like to have the color already on the objects. So I'll be placing objects in here, and as the objects go in, they speak to me. As I put them beside each other, they'll create a story, and then I carry on from there.
So every object becomes a part of the story?
Yes, most of the time. I'm trying to, the direction I'm taking now is to use the objects as just as the palette. Getting away from objects that already have a meaning. So if I use something that's broken, it has lost its original function, its original meaning, and then I can use that for my piece.
But if it's broken, it's talking about being broken.
Not in my eyes. I use it as the color and as the shape, as the material.
So that's more concerned with design. This then is a new step.
Mhm.
This is something new from what we've seen in the gallery.
Yes.
You were talking a little bit about you're going to use some bubble packs?
Oh yes, because I'm always.
You got one?
Yes, I have those packs. I've been saving them. People have been saving them for me. This is an already made container with the box and the covered glass. If I mount these, I can put things in them. I think I'm going to go into more decorative mode with these.
Are you talking about then recycling waste, or you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
think of this prior life that these things have had? I mean, this one does have an interesting story about it.
I think of where they came from, but when I employ them, I try to put them in a different context so that the viewer won't think of this as whatever the shape it was. You can see what probably came in these packages.
This way? Or this way?
That's right.
So that it's not a box anymore?
I'll probably have a back on it.
Oh, I see.
So that has a closed space.
Well, I guess my final question is, why do you do this?
Oh, love and money.